Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to Aussie Fish Keeping. So in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 6 of the best low pH aquarium fish. So all 6 of these species are super hardy, very easy to care for, and they obviously all go well in a lower pH. So these are great species if you want to be keeping a blackwater aquarium, and if you don't know what that is, it's basically just an aquarium with heaps and heaps of tannins and botanicals. And most of the time, those sorts of setups do have a bit of a lower pH, so it can be a little bit more tricky to find fish for them. But yeah, for today's video, like I said, I've picked out 6 of my favorite fish to keep in a low pH aquarium. These are all fish I've kept before. Some of them I have at the moment, and some of them I don't have at the moment. But yeah, I guess with that being said, without any further ado, let's just jump straight into today's video with the first fish on our list. So as for fish number 1 today, we have probably one of the most common aquarium fish of all time. We have Tetras. So obviously there's hundreds and hundreds of different species of Tetras from all across the globe, although the main ones I'm talking about for today's video are lots of the Tetras from South America. So things like cardinal Tetras, neon Tetras, lemon Tetras, rummy nose Tetras, all of those sorts of Tetras are usually from places like South America, where the water is usually got a pretty low pH. Although obviously there's other sorts of Tetras like, Congo Tetras, which are from Africa, and usually those sorts of fish prefer a bit of a higher pH. I've never really kept Congo Tetras before, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know. But yeah, as for, your neons, cardinals, all those sorts of ones, I've kept pretty much all those before, and they all do go absolutely great in a lower pH. And because of that, they're absolutely awesome to put in a blackwater aquarium. So not only can they just thrive really well in the parameters of a blackwater aquarium, but their colors really pop when you have them in a bit of a darker, more blackwater setup. So it can be super nice to, throw in a school of maybe 6 cardinal Tetras into a nice blackwater aquarium. You'll find their colors pop a lot more than just in any old clear water aquarium. Now, something else great about the Tetras is obviously they're super hardy, so they can go in the very low pH, but they're also very easy to care for and very peaceful. So as for tank mates for your Tetras, they can go with pretty much anything. There are some species of Tetras that are a little bit more nippy than others, but as for just your regular cardinal Tetras, neon Tetras, those sorts of Tetras, they can be a little bit nippy at times, but most of the time it's pretty safe to keep them with a number of different aquarium fish. So some of the best tank mates I'd recommend are things like angelfish, dwarf cichlids, catfish like Corydoras and bristlenose. All sorts of loaches go well with them. And yeah, pretty much any sort of those tropical aquarium fish should be able to go well with Tetras, as long as you don't have them in with something too big that's just gonna straight up eat them. And sometimes if you have them with really long finned fish, so things like guppies, you may find there's a little bit of nipping from the Tetras. But yeah, like I said before, that's usually not really a problem. It shouldn't really happen too often at all. So yeah, they are actually relatively peaceful and can actually go with quite a number of different tank mates. As for the water parameters I'd recommend for them, obviously a low pH, so anywhere between 6 to 6.5, and a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And besides that, they're super easy to care for, so the only other thing you're going to want to throw in their aquarium is a little bit of aquarium plants. So usually these really small schooling fish like to be in a planted aquarium just because out in the wild they'd be eaten by pretty much anything. So having lots of aquarium plants for them to go and hide away in is definitely very beneficial. It makes them feel a lot safer in your aquarium. And if your Tetras are feeling a lot safer, they'll put on better color, they'll school better, they'll eat more. So yeah, it's just definitely very beneficial to throw in a few aquarium plants with your Tetras. But yeah, with that said, as for fish number 1 on our list today, we have Tetras. Moving on to the next aquarium fish for a low pH on our list, we have a really cool little catfish. We have Corydoras. So Corydoras are just a super versatile little aquarium fish. They can go with pretty much any sort of tank mates, any sort of water parameters. They are super hardy, super easy to care for, just one of the best beginner aquarium fish in my opinion. So obviously these Corydoras come from very similar environments to your Tetras, so they are great in blackwater aquariums with a lower pH. They're also, like I mentioned, very peaceful, so they can literally go with anything. The only thing I wouldn't keep Corydoras with are things like cherry shrimp, just because they may go around and eat your cherry shrimp every now and then, and that's definitely not what you want. And I also wouldn't keep them with anything too big, like, I don't know, a barramundi or something that's just going to eat them. But as for most of your tropical aquarium fish, so your Tetras, barbs, rasboras, loaches, other sorts of catfish, they should be fine with all those. They won't nip at anything at all. They don't really have a mouth to nip at anything. So yeah, they're very peaceful and they can definitely go with a bunch of different aquarium fish. Something else really beneficial about these guys is they actually help keep your aquarium clean as well. So they are a bit of a scavenger fish, which means if there's any leftover food in your aquarium, they'll actually go around and pick that all up, and that can help reduce any sort of chance of an ammonia spike occurring in your aquarium. It also just helps you keep your aquarium a lot cleaner for a lot longer, and it means you don't have to do water changes as regularly. So yeah, they're definitely just a great little aquarium fish to throw into your aquarium in general. As for the water parameters for these guys, the exact same as the Tetras, so a pH anywhere between 6 to 6.5 and a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So the only other thing I'd recommend with these guys is trying to keep them on a soft substrate. A lot of people don't think it really matters, but I have kept Cories on a bit of a more coarse substrate before, and I have found they just don't do as well. And the reason for that, if you didn't know, is because sometimes on a more coarse substrate, the Cories can damage their barbels, which are just their little whisker things. And once they damage their barbels, they're exposed to all sorts of infections. They can swell up and make it super hard for them to eat. So yeah, I just like to keep them in a soft substrate aquarium. The benefit of a soft substrate as well is they can actually sift through that sand. So that can actually help keep your aquarium a lot cleaner for a lot longer, and it helps simulate a little bit more of their natural environment. So yeah, with that said, as for another great low pH aquarium fish, we have Corydoras. Moving on to the next species of fish on our list, we actually have one that I don't keep at the moment. We have Rasboras. So Rasboras are super similar to Tetras. I think they're a little bit more widespread, so I think you can get them all parts of Southeast Asia and South America. And yeah, they're literally just a smaller version of a Tetra, so most of the Rasboras don't get as big as some of the Tetras do, and they're a really common sort of nano fish. So one of my favorite things about the Rasboras is they're actually a very fast moving and interesting sort of fish. Well, not fast moving, but just a super active sort of fish. So if you have a sort of plain nano aquarium with just a few shrimp, maybe a few plants in there, and there's not much action going on, you can throw in a few Rasboras, something like, you know, a chili Rasbora, maculata Rasbora, emerald Rasbora, anything like that, and that'll just add a little bit more action and interest into your aquarium. So Rasboras can be a little bit trickier to keep than the Tetras. There's a few species like Harlequin Rasboras which are just, you know, really easy to care for, but as for some of your smaller ones, like your maculata Rasboras, your chili Rasboras, emerald Rasboras, those sorts of fish can be a little bit harder to keep, and the reason for that is because they're way smaller than any other sort of aquarium fish. So you're going to need to feed them a lot smaller foods. So usually with fish like that, I like to feed them live baby brine shrimp. I think live baby brine shrimp is just one of the greatest little small fish foods you can feed your small fish. But you can also get lots of powdered foods and things like that that you can sprinkle in your aquarium. So yeah, it's not like hard to keep them by any means, but it's just something you're going to have to keep in mind if you do plan on keeping some Rasboras. As for water parameters for these guys, it does depend on what species you get and where they're from, but for the most part, a pH around 6 to 6.5 and a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. And then exactly like the Tetras, you want to throw in a bunch of aquarium plants in their aquarium. So they are a very small fish and they do like to have lots of little hiding spots and lots of aquarium plants to go away and hide in if they do ever feel stressed. But yeah, with that said, as for the third fish on our list, we have Rasboras. Moving on to the next fish on our list, we have Apistogrammas. So if you don't know what Apistogrammas are, they're just basically a group of dwarf cichlids. They come in a variety of colors, so there's so many species out there. Your more common ones are your Apistogramma cacatoides and your Apistogramma agassizii. So yeah, as for the ones I've got some Apistogramma cacatoides orange flash, but you can also get your Apistogramma cacatoides double reds, triple reds, all those sorts of cool strains. There's actually so many different types of Apistos out there. So these guys are a little bit different from the other fish on our list. Most of the other fish are schooling fish, whereas these guys like to be in pairs. So you don't want to keep them by themselves, but you also don't really want to keep them in big schools. You could keep, you know, maybe 5 females with 1 male. I don't really think the male would care that much, but you don't want to be keeping, you know, 5 males with 1 female. I think the female would care a little bit. So it's best to try and keep them in a pair or a trio. So 1 male, 1 female, or 1 male, 2 females. You don't want to have more males than females, just because the males can be a little bit aggressive towards each other. But besides that, they're actually pretty peaceful, so they can actually go with pretty much any sort of tropical aquarium fish. You know, your Tetras, Rasboras, Barbs, catfish. Sometimes when they are spawning or they've, taken up residence in a little coconut hut or some sort of little hide in your aquarium, they can get a little bit territorial, so they might chase some fish away, but they're never going to really just go after your fish for no reason. So they are, pretty peaceful, and it's pretty safe to keep them with a variety of different tropical aquarium fish. As for water parameters for these guys, again, a pH anywhere between 6 to 7, and a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So something that you do want to keep in your aquarium with these guys, particularly if you've got a pet, is, like I mentioned, some sort of hide. So usually when you're keeping Apistogrammas or dwarf cichlids, you're going to want to use something like a coconut hut. Very easy to make or buy. I think a lot of aquarium stores sell them, but I just prefer to make them. They're like so easy to make. And yeah, that'll just give them somewhere to spawn. You don't have to save the fry if you don't want to. You can just, let the fry sort of die off in your aquarium, or you can take the eggs. You can also let the parents raise the fry and then take the fry. If your fish are spawning in your aquarium, you know that they're feeling very safe and happy, so it's definitely a good sign if your fish are spawning. It's nothing to be scared about, I guess. So yeah, if you do plan to keep these guys, definitely go ahead and get a hide for them as well. But with that being said, as for another great low pH aquarium fish, we have Apistogrammas. Moving on to the next species of fish on our list, we have one very similar to the Rasboras and Tetras. We have Barbs. So the way I like to look at it is you've got your Tetras, which are just normal Tetra size. Then you've got your Rasboras, which are just small Tetra size. And then you've got your Barbs, which are just bigger Tetra size. So they're all sort of the same sort of fish. They're probably not related at all, but they just all sort of look the same. They all sort of act the same. They can go in the same water parameters. They also go with the same sorts of tank mates. Although I do believe the Barbs are a little bit more from Southeast Asia. And I don't actually know if there is any South American Barbs. There probably is, but I think most of them are from Southeast Asia. So yeah, Barbs are another super colorful, active, lively aquarium fish. Great to throw into your aquarium if it's, boring and drab and you want a little bit of action. Throw in a few Barbs and it'll brighten up the aquarium. It'll also add a little bit more movement. As for water parameters for these guys, again, a pH anywhere between 6 to 7.5 and a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius. These guys can go in a little bit of a higher pH, although they definitely are able to live in a lower pH as well. And exactly like the Tetras and Rasboras, make sure to add plenty of aquarium plants in their aquarium. It'll help them brighten up a little bit more. It'll also give them a bunch of spaces for them to spawn in and hide in. But yeah, with that said, Barbs are another great low pH aquarium fish, and I would highly recommend them. Moving on to the final species of fish on our list, we've got another one that I don't actually keep at the moment, but I think everybody's kept at least one in their fish keeping career. We have Gouramis. So Gouramis are probably one of the coolest little aquarium fish in my opinion. They're almost like a dwarf cichlid, but just a little bit different. So some of your more popular Gouramis are obviously your better fish, but then you've also got, your flame Gouramis, honey Gouramis, your little, I think they're just called dwarf Gouramis. I'll pop up a picture of them. I'm not sure what their actual name is. I think they are literally just called dwarf Gouramis. You've also got your super small Gouramis, so things like licorice Gouramis, sparkling Gouramis, croaking Gouramis. There is so many different types of Gouramis out there, and pretty much all of them are great for a low pH aquarium. So if you were getting a blackwater aquarium, in my opinion, the coolest Gouramis would obviously be your better fish. All sorts of those really small Gouramis like your licorice, croaking, and sparkling Gouramis, I think look absolutely amazing in a blackwater aquarium. Their colors just pop so much more. It's definitely the way to keep them if you do want to keep them. As for water parameters for these guys, again, a pH anywhere between 6 to 6.5 and a temperature anywhere between 22 to 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 72 to 82 degrees Fahrenheit. So the aggression level of these guys really does depend on what species you get. Obviously, your betters are a little bit more aggressive than the rest. Better fish are notoriously quite aggressive fish, but that really does just depend on the individual better. Some are very peaceful, some are more aggressive. But as for your really small nano Gouramis, they're all pretty peaceful and they can go with pretty much any sort of tropical aquarium fish out there. But yeah, with that said, as for the final low pH aquarium fish on our list, we have Gouramis. So that is actually going to bring us to the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this video helps a few of you guys out. If you did enjoy today's video and you haven't done so already, please make sure to go down and subscribe. And while you're down there, smash the like button and comment your thoughts on today's video. I always love going down there and reading them all, and I try to reply back to as many comments as I can. Also, if you haven't done so already, make sure to go check out my website, aussiefishkeeping.com. I've got heaps and heaps of different fish up there for sale. But yeah, with that said, thank you all so much for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you all in that next video.